Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Eek Acres. It has been cold, windy, and rainy here. Yesterday, we actually got hot, but before that and now today, it's back to being cold and just miserable weather, but it's fall. So I'm gonna go down here and go into the office of the pole barn to get out of the wind and talk about a few things. I haven't felt really good lately. It's been off and on, where I feel fine, then I don't, and then I do, and then I start feeling sick again. And it comes on as fast as opening a window. And the only thing I can do, and it's a guess, is say it's probably the kidney doing it. I don't know if that's what's doing it, but I assume that's what's doing it. Is the kidney problem I have, because they believe I got cancer of the kidney and I got to go to Roswell this month. And they also called me and made a second appointment, which I don't know how they knew this because I didn't make the appointment, but they also are having me see a doctor out there at the cancer hospital for the lesion on my hip, because I'm assuming they think it's related, because I got a lesion on the bone of my hip, my pelvis, and it's on the same side as the kidney that showed up on the CAT scan as being cancerous. So it's hard for me to keep up with the news and everything that's going on with this election, everything that's going on with the disasters down south, because the more I absorb all this negative, bad stuff, it makes me so sick to my stomach to where I feel like I could vomit. So I have to shield myself until I get this problem resolved on how much I take in on what's going on in the world, because it's so disturbing, it's so depressing, to where I can't just absorb that stuff every day. I just can't do it. But I do want to talk in this video about some of the things that are going on and give my thoughts on it. Because all throughout the United States, regardless of where you live, everybody should have preps. Everybody should be prepared for the unknown, the unforeseen. And this varies according to where you live. Somebody on the West Coast would have to prepare completely different than me, who's more on the East Coast than they are. So what I would be prepared for would be totally different than what they would be prepared for, because they have to deal with things out there that I don't have to deal with here. And that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. Now, I know people live all over the United States for all kinds of reasons. Maybe they were born and raised there. Maybe they got family there. And maybe it's all they know. Maybe they can't afford to move. Maybe they don't want to move. But the thing that I don't understand is why people choose to live or would want to live in an area that is historically known for disasters. And I'm talking huge disasters. And yet they live there. I did see a video about a woman, an older woman who was in her late 50s, early 60s, driving down the interstate crying, saying that everything that she owns is in her car. And she did video of her home before she left, and it was destroyed by this last hurricane that came up through Florida, Hurricane Helene. And when she did the video of her home that was destroyed, she showed what was happening before she evacuated, before she left. And she lived on the Gulf side of Florida, right where Helene came through, right up into that concave part of Florida there by the Panhandle. She lived just down the south end of that loop. And her house was sitting literally 15 feet away from this big inlet on the Gulf. And there was a concrete break wall that it went from grass to a concrete break wall that was only a couple inches above the grass. And then just past that break wall that was several feet thick was the ocean. And the water was lapping over it and lapping over it. And then it came onto the lawn. And then it started to just, the water come right across the break wall and across the lawn and started to lap up against her sliding glass doors, 15 feet away from the ocean. And I'm thinking, I felt bad for her because she lost everything. But you guys, what people don't talk about in this country, and especially in YouTube videos, is where is the personal accountability? No one wants to talk about that because it's not popular. And it may make people mad at this video because I'm talking about what other people won't talk about. But if you live 15 feet from water and your state is at, not above, not below, but at sea level, and then you wonder why your house got destroyed when it sits in an area that is historically known for catastrophic hurricanes. I just don't understand this. I just don't understand. Tell me how we're supposed to feel when people do this. It's this, you look at Chimney Rock, North Carolina, and I feel bad for what happened to those people. Horrible. How many people had passed away because of that horrific storm and the damage and losing their homes and automobiles and their jobs and their livelihood. Tragic. It's terrible. And I really, my heart goes out to those people. But the thing that no one's talking about, and I wish I had a dry board, but in Chimney Rock, you got these steep mountains that come down really, really steep on both sides. And at the bottom is a riverbed. And this town was built all along the banks of this river. And they had a forecast where I saw a forecast before this flood hit, because they had a rainstorm that went through that brought them several inches of rain, and this was before Helene came through. And the meteorologist was saying on their local stations that the hurricane, on the heels of the storm that already blew through, brought them several inches of rain, that Helene was going to bring them in excess of 30 inches of rain. If you live in a V of two mountains and you're down at the bottom, all that water coming off those mountains, where do you think that water is going to go? What do you think is going to happen when you've already got several inches of rain followed by 30 plus inches of rain on the way? Did anyone evacuate? Did anybody pack their vehicles, fill up their tank, and get the hell out of Dodge? You guys, I don't understand where the intelligence is today. I just don't, and I'm not blaming these people. I'm just saying that this stuff is common sense, you guys. People that live in historically disastrous areas, every year you hear the same story. They lost everything. Maybe their pets died. Maybe their loved ones died. But look at where these people live. They live in places where disasters are just waiting to happen. Now, if someone says, well, that's never happened. Well, it has happened before in that area. Back in the 18th century, there was a massive flood that went through that area. So historically, there's documentation that it's happened before. Maybe not on the same level as this time, but everybody knows that hurricanes have gone over Florida, gone into Georgia, gone up into the Carolinas, and brought major storms, spawned tornadoes, caused lengthy power outages, and brought horrific amounts of rain. So when you look at areas historically and what's happened to various regions in the United States, and then when these things happen, You say, well, it was just a matter of time. Because you look at the geography of the place, if you're living in the crook of two mountains, and where the hell's all that water going to go? Right through your living room, because you're living at the lowest point. Instead of up in the mountains, you're living at the bottom, right near the river, telling you right where all the water's going to go. And is it any wonder why homes and automobiles and businesses and everything got washed downstream? Same thing with the forest fires out west. Up in the mountains where these forests are bone dry and have all this dead laying all over the ground. And then when it goes up like a match and huge forest fires, all I'm saying is that this country is huge and there's lots of places to live in this country that are safe, where there is no historical record of any disasters or catastrophes. Zero. There's plenty of places in the United States where it's totally safe to live. I've lived here going on 54 years, and in my lifetime, there's never been a disaster right here in Western New York. My dad was born in 1924. It's now 2024. He died at the age of 76. If he was still alive, he'd be 100 years old. And in his lifetime, he said there's never been a disaster right here in Western New York because he was born here, he was raised here, and he always lived here. And when you talk to his mother and father, my grandfather and grandmother, same thing. Lived here all their life. My grandmother and grandfather ran one of the biggest furniture factories down in the city. Lived here all their life. And nothing ever happened. That's 3 generations where nothing of any disaster of any type has ever happened here. That's why I live here, folks. That's why I live here. When people have told me throughout the years on YouTube, Kev, go down south. You don't like winter, go down. I said, no. I hate winter, but I'm not going down south because my life would be worse down there. Because worse shit happens down there. I'm not putting myself from the frying pan into the fire. I don't want to lose everything I have. I don't want to see my vehicle get flooded and washed away. I'm not doing that. Snow melts and goes away. I can deal with that. I don't like it, but I can deal with it. And I'm not moving out to Tornado Alley where historically, if you look at Tornado Alley, there's a number of states that are inside Tornado Alley and everybody knows what happens in Tornado Alley. I'm not going to live in a bowling alley playing Russian roulette with an EF4 or an EF5 tornado saying, whew, it missed me this spring, but what about next spring? Every year you go through that as you live out there, hoping that a giant, mile-wide stovepipe tornado isn't going to come through and level your whole frickin' town. Because it happens every single year. And yet people live there. I'm not doing that. People can live wherever they want. They can live at sea level. They can live in the V of a mountain where they're going to have catastrophic flooding. They can live out in California where they get massive earthquakes, and they can live in Tornado Alley where you just literally get blown away. They can have it. I'm not going to live in those places. I want to live where it is historically safe to live going back 200 years. Not saying that something couldn't happen because anything is possible, but I'm saying when you look at the history records, nothing has happened here. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in my entire lifetime, and probably never will, so long as I live. So all I have to deal with here in Western New York is snow every winter. That's it. I plow it with a plow truck. I shovel it with a shovel. I hate it. I curse it. But then April and May come, the flowers come out, and it's over with. But it doesn't destroy your house. It doesn't wash your vehicle away. It doesn't blow your barn down. It doesn't do any of that stuff. It's just miserable to put up with. And if that's all I've got to put up with to have a decent life on this planet, then I'll deal with it. But I'm not gonna live in an area where you can lose everything in under a minute. Your house, your car, your job, everything you own, your clothes, your personal belongings, things you can't replace.
Screw that. There's too many places in this country where you can live where you don't have to deal with that stuff. And this happens to be one of them, right here in Western New York. You guys in the Carolinas and down in Georgia, you got steep mountains, way steeper than ours. The steeper the mountain, the bigger the mountain, the more water it sheds. And if you live at the bottom, right in that V of two mountains, guess where the water's going to go, folks? If you live at sea level in Florida, guess where the ocean's going to go, folks? If you live out in Tornado Alley, guess what's going to happen when a big-ass tornado comes along and it does hit your town? It's going to take everything right off the foundation of your home. It's going to take everything and it's going to blow it into the next town. I personally choose not to live in a disaster region. I just won't do it for any reason. I don't care about the politics, the economy, jobs, taxes, all that goes out the window, because when it comes to disasters, you can have it. But people need to prepare according to where you live. If you live in a disaster area, you got to prepare 10 times more than I do. I prepare for things that are unforeseen, but I don't have to prepare for a hurricane. I don't have to prepare for an EF5 tornado. But I think with the way the world is getting today, regardless of where you live, we all should prepare. We all should have the things in place that we need for lengthy power outages, civil unrest, stuff like that. And by the way, a lot of these people have been without power for, I guess, over a week now. Maybe it's been 10 days. The longest we've ever gone without power here in Western New York in my lifetime has been 30 minutes. In almost 54 years of me being on this planet, I have never gone without electricity longer than 30 minutes. That's the God's honest truth. So if you want to talk about a safe place to live, where I live is pretty damn safe. And I know people aren't going to like this video, but it's the truth. When these people have stuff that happened to them, look at where they live, where they choose to build, and that they don't have the sense to look at, say, hey, I'm living at the base of a mountain. If that thing sheds enough water, what's going to happen to my property down here at the bottom? Well, you saw what happens. Now they can see what it's like when you live at the base of two mountains, and what happens when hurricanes come through in Florida and what it does. Why rebuild? It'll only get lost again. And now there's another one on the way. And I hope to God this one don't go up into the Carolinas. And I hope to God it doesn't hit the same place in Florida, because they're devastated enough. But I do believe this stuff is being controlled. I do believe weather, they've talked about weather manipulation since the 50s. And it's something they can do, you guys. You can look into it on the internet. There's all kinds of information on it. I do believe that this stuff's being done on purpose, targeting certain regions to see what they can do with this. That's what I believe. But people can live where they want. It's a free country. But I just don't understand why they don't want to live in a safe place. I'll never understand that. Thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you again in the next one. Bye-bye.